Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to hear from our sponsors, but before we do that, we want to give a shout out to our two podcast partners, We Coach and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. These are two great organizations that you should be a part of, so check them out. The Global Community of Women in High School Sports and We Coach. And now let's hear a quick word from our sponsors. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set your school up to sell tickets online. They'll show you how to scan the attendees that come to your games and collect revenue. And every step of the way, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager that's providing you with hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, school plays and concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Go to OnSnap, that's OnSnap.com, to check out the Snap Mobile platform. There's a lot of different features that can make your life as an athletic director a lot more productive. Snap Raise is their fundraising platform. Our coaches have used it, and they raise thousands of dollars, and you can too. There's even a component that allows you to get your money before you actually start your fundraiser. Snap Spend is their secure money management platform. Snap Store allows you to order custom team gear and fan gear. Snap Manage is their website platform, and Snap Connect is their secure multilingual family engagement platform. You're going to find it all at onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com, part of the Snap mobile platform. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com and tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Use the podcast code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom branded content for your school's social media channel. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to Huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their athletes perform at the highest level. I used Huddle as a football coach for years, but as an athletic director, our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Go to Huddle.com, and you're going to find tools that will help your teams and your coaches do their jobs better. Huddle provides a professional grade solution for your athletic department. And if you go to Huddle.com, you're going to find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. Huddle believes in sports, and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school at Huddle.com. We want to thank Final Forms for their support. Final Forms is the leader in forms and registration, but they are so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like reminders about policies and physicals and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all of the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help share how a positive athletic experience can impact them. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles and their library of templates. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards along with your school's Hall of Fame, then Vital Signs Wall of Fame is where you want to go. They've got the ability to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. And go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com to get started. And we want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. You've heard me mention that we've got a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. That's sidelineinteractive.com or email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Today, we're going to Texas, and we're going to be visiting with a friend of the show. We're going to be talking with Carl Semler. Carl is a certified master athletic administrator, and he is the associate head football coach and athletic coordinator at Lubbock High School in Lubbock, Texas. Carl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Coach. Glad to be here.
Well, you and I were talking a little bit before. We've been doing these podcasts for a while, and I've noticed Carl, he'll like a podcast, and sometimes he'll even make a comment, and that's how you become a friend of the show. So if you would like to be on the podcast, start liking our podcast, start adding your words to the conversation, and we'll get you on. But let's go and get started. Carl, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, where you grew up, probably some sports background. Maybe take us up through the college years, and then we'll take a break and hear more about your early career. So what's the Carl Semler story?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to let you know, how y'all and everybody in Florida, y'all are in our thoughts and prayers. One of the things I'll touch on later is, I moved to Lubbock from Houston, and I was there when we got hit with Hurricane Harvey and Tropical Storm Imelda. So I know personally the devastation that hurricanes bring to communities and schools. And I just wanted to say, first of all, that y'all are in our thoughts and prayers here in Texas. So.
Let me go and tell for our listeners, thanks so much for saying it. And again, you and I were talking about that. We're recording this episode on November 10th. So by the time you hear it, things are going to be past, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't still be thinking about whether it's Florida or Texas or New Orleans or the Carolinas. Thanks so much for doing that, Carl. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, my personal bio, let's see, I was born in 1971 in Fort Worth. And, I guess the shame of it is that kind of makes me an old, especially here at Lubbock High, that makes me like ancient, now. And my dad, he was a football coach. My mom was an English teacher. They met on the job, and one thing led to another. I think he proposed to her in a letter and she corrected it, anyway, I showed up a couple years later, and I've got a little sister that she came along about 3 years after me. Uh, Growing up, being a coach's kid, of course, you're gonna play sports, little league, and all that. The only sports I was ever really good at were football, and I was an okay shot put and discus thrower in track. It was I always was the first guy cut when I tried out for basketball. I was first guy cut from cross country. It was, the coaches were always nice, but it was, son, you just need to go focus on football, or go, hey, here's the shot in the disc. Why don't you give this a try? But let's see. Then I walked on at Texas Tech. I graduated from Euless Trinity High School, where they're famous for everybody knows them as the Tongan School. They're the high school that the kids dance the haka dance before. Well, when I was at Trinity, there were 5 Tongans in the whole school. 3 of them were girls, and I think all 3 of them could beat up the football team. I mean, it was man, but we had a lot of fun. I wanted to play college football, so I walked on at Texas Tech. That went about as good as a basketball tryout for me. So it didn't work out, but Coach Spike Dykes, he was the head coach at Tech at the time, and he knew my dad, he knew me, and he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, man, I love your heart. I know you're very bright. You really ought to think about coaching." And at that time, I was at Texas Tech. I wanted to be Indiana Jones. When I was in 6th grade, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. And I mean, that lasted all the way until my sophomore year of college. Now I didn't realize that Indiana Jones was an archaeologist. I just wanted to be Indiana Jones. I saw that and I was like, yeah, man, hey, finding all this cool stuff and doing everything. Well, at Tech, I found out what archaeology really was, and I switched to history in a hurry. And so graduated in 1994 with a degree in history, and then got an online master's degree later on from Concordia, Nebraska. Yep. And currently, I'm working on my doctorate from Arkansas State online. So, that's really kind of my bio. I've been married for 20, going on 28 years now. And my wife, Megan, she's an English teacher. So history repeated itself. I proposed to her, and she said, "Well, what is my full name? What is it?" Kind of coached me through the whole proposal matter. Filling out birth certificates was an adventure. Went through several drafts of those. But we've been very happily married, and we have 2 kids. Alex is 25, and he is an actor and a director out in Los Angeles. And our daughter, Evelyn, is 20, and she is a student at Texas Tech.
And as you said, Texas Tech is just down the road from your high school. So that's very cool. I just love it, listening to the stories. I think it's one of the big reasons I do the podcast. So, I can, just listen to our guests as they weave that tale. Talk a little bit about, now in Texas, they don't use the word athletic director. They use athletic coordinator, I think. Talk a little bit about that journey, going from, say, teacher coach to what I call the other side of the desk. How did that all play out for you?
Well, let's see. For me, the first 18 years, I was teaching and coaching. From junior high through high school was in Dallas-Fort Worth, various schools there. And in 2008, I got my first opportunity to be an athletic coordinator. They were opening a brand new school. It was the first split of a district. So you can imagine how, kind of dicey that situation is. You're in a long-standing district with one school, and now all of a sudden it's too big, and so they're going to open up another. And that was one of my early mentors. He was the equivalency of the athletic director out there. And he called and said, "Hey, I want you to start this school, and you're going to start it with freshmen, and let's just go. Let's just see how this goes." And so because I really trusted him, and I still do to this day, I said, "Yes, sir, I'm in." And so we started, and it was, let's see, it was a 3A in Texas. 3A is a fairly gigantic division in terms of school population. You can have anywhere at that time, your school population could be anywhere from about 1,000 kids to almost 2,000 kids. So you may have a football team of 25, and your opponent may have a football team of 100, and you still got to line up and play. So, that was my first opportunity. And then we, in 2010, we made the playoffs. We didn't even have a senior class at that point. We kind of lucked our way in there, but you know what it is in coaching. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right? So, we made it. And then after that, my father, he was from Houston, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I need a favor. Your aunts and uncles are getting sick. They're older. Your mother and I are retired. We can't afford to move to Houston, but really, if you can move and help us out, I'd really appreciate it. Dad, this is family. You don't have to explain anything." So, got beat in the playoffs, and the next day I went and told the superintendent, "Hey, I have to resign," and kind of looked at me like, "Wait, what? Why?" I said, "Well, it's family. I got to move to Houston." So that was like the first reboot of my career. Was which is, I'll talk about that later. I've never been afraid to reboot my career. So I go down to Houston, and kind of work my way back up. I was down there for the last 10 years. And so, I started out when one of my buddies from DFW, he was a head coach down there. And so he hired me. And next thing you know, like 5 years later, I'm an assistant coach at a different school. Well, the head coach resigns, and the athletic director comes to me and says, "Hey, I want you to be the head coach." And I was, "Well, I'm not even one of the coordinators, sir. What?" He said, "Well, do you like this school?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, do you like this district?" I said, "Yes, sir, sure do." He said, "Well, the only way I'm going to let you stay at this school is if you apply to be the head coach." He said, "If you don't do that, then you're going to be either the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, or one of the other schools in the district. But if you want to stay at Aldine High School, you're going to have to apply to be the head coach." I said, "Well, I guess I better apply." And so we're getting ready. The day we let out for Christmas, they were throwing me the keys and saying, "Hey, please try to fix this. Do what you can." And the program, Aldine had, they had won a national championship, the USA Today national title. They had, lots of NFL players had gone through over the years. And, but other schools had opened. The district had split. Back when they were doing all this, it was a one school district, and now it was a 5-school district. And so, you split the talent 5 ways. All of a sudden, people are wondering why the W's aren't coming as fast as they used to. But we did a lot. And so later, my wife said, "You know what? Why don't we move to be closer to the kids?" And so I said, "Okay, where do you want to go?" She said, "Well, let's go to Lubbock, because with our son living out in LA and our daughter at Tech, that was a no-brainer for me." So I called up some buddies out here and said, "Hey, I'd like to come work for you out here." And they said, "Hey, come on." So here I am, Lubbock High.
Again, well, I just love hearing about all the twists and turns. And a lot of times, for our younger ADs, your family is going to have an impact on where you actually end up. And, one of my pieces of free advice has always been, don't dig your feet in and say, well, I'm not going to leave my hometown or I'm not going to leave my state. Be flexible, be open to those opportunities, and you just don't know where that great fit, that great job, that great boss, that great group of kids, that great place to raise your family is going to turn up. Very cool stuff. Thanks for sharing all that. For our listeners, our guest today is Carl Semler. He's from he's in Lubbock, Texas right now, Lubbock High. He's the associate head football coach and the associate athletic coordinator. We're going to take our first break, but we'll be back with some more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And if you go to hometownticketing.com, they're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online for your sporting events. They'll show you how to scan the attendees that come to your games and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you will have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and they will also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, your school plays and concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor scoring tables and video boards. You've heard me say before that we've got a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies. We use it for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, and you can schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Carl Semler. He's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's at Lubbock High School in Lubbock, Texas. Carl, you kind of hinted at it a little bit during the previous segment, but we also like to have our guests share some of the mentors that have impacted them over their career. None of us get to where we're at on our own. So who are some of the people that have helped you along the way?
Well, I guess the biggest mentor for me was my dad. Just growing up as a coach's son, seeing, growing up, you always feel like every coach is your dad. The field house is your second home. That's just watching him work with people, watching him navigate his team through a season. Great seasons and bad seasons and all. It was always amazing to me how you could be such a great father and a great coach, and so he really, when I became a coach, he really helped me out a lot with that. When I was in high school, my position coach, Ray Verkirk, the offensive line coach, he was an old Vietnam vet, and he was the stereotype of an offensive line coach, kind of the rough, gruff. Back then they kind of, if you weren't doing it right, they'd knock you upside the head a little bit. Can't do that now, but that kind of guy. But he was also an amazing classroom teacher. And when I decided I was going to be a coach, I went back. He was one of the first people I talked to, and he said, well, you've got to do a great job in the classroom. If you're not doing a great job in the classroom, you're not going to be worth anything out there on that field. He said, the best coaches are the best classroom teachers. He said, that's just the way it is. If you don't care about the classroom, you're really not going to care too much about that field house. And so, the next big mentor for me was my wife. My wife, she has been just such an inspiration. She, in this day and age, a lot of times kids are latchkey kids. Both parents are working. My wife, she put her career on hold for a decade to raise two children. We never used daycare, and I don't have a problem with people that do. I think there are great daycares out there all over the world, that do a great job. But I also believe that nothing really can replace a parent, when you're raising a child. And so, I will always be eternally grateful to her for that. The first head coach I worked for, Eli Melton, he was also the athletic director that hired me for my first athletic coordinator head football job, and so, he just really, and to this day, I can always pick the phone up, call Eli and know that he's going to have great advice for me. And then, the last guy would be Todd Dodge. He was the head coach of South Lake Carroll High School when I was an assistant there from 2000 2007. And Coach Dodge, before then, I was a wing T guy. I was and he introduced me to the spread offense, but he also introduced me into fieldhouse culture, dealing with multiple personalities that don't always agree with you. He deliberately hired contrarians, people that did not think the same way that he did, because he always wanted to grow as a coach, and he always wanted people around him who were going to challenge him and make him think about why he was doing what he was doing. And so those were really my mentors.
Boy, you were going along, with, I'll say, traditional list, very personal to you. And then you throw out an A-lister like Todd Dodge. Okay. That's pretty, well, they're all impressive, but very cool. And again, I think it's a great reminder to our younger listeners, or any of our listeners, that, those mentor relationships can really, really make a difference in your career. Let's go and jump into, that CMAA background. I think it's important that people like you and I that have our CMAA, not bragging, but just saying that, we talk about that didn't just fall out of the air. There's a process to go through. So talk a little bit about how you got involved with your state association and how you got involved with NIAAA.
All righty. Well, the state association is Texas High School Coaches Association, or THSCA. And I'd been a member, still am, joined in 1994. And, we have the traditional state organizations. We have our yearly conferences. We have lots of in-service trainings throughout the calendar year. But it was always just a great opportunity to network. It's a great opportunity to meet the people like, a lot of our sponsors here, Final Forms and Gipper and Huddle. And, before the THSCA conference, I didn't know what Huddle was. We were still using VHS and, all that. And the Huddle reps really did a great job, taking us through the ins and outs of what streaming looks like, what everything, and just really grateful for them. But that was THSCA. I just, a couple of years ago got my 25-year plaque, and it was like crickets, when they announced my name, because it was, somebody's got a 25-year plaque? What? Wow. I was, man. I remember when I was a young coach, that was the long list, so. Again, kind of a shame in the profession, but, hopefully I'm not going anywhere. So now NIAAA, I'm kind of late to the NIAAA party. I got involved in 2016. One of our assistant athletic directors at Aldine ISD, her name is Sandra Mader, and she's very big in NIAAA. She handles the state certification for Texas coaches. She is CMAA. She teaches one of the LTI courses. Yep. Just an absolutely outstanding leader and a mentor for me. And when I first took over Aldine High, she said, Carl, I want you to get involved in NIAAA. And I was, well, okay, coach, what is it? And so she sat me down and over an evening went over everything with me. And so, well, look, just try the online trainings first. Do the online courses and all. And so, I mean, I started with the first one with 501, and I was hooked right from the outset. I mean, it got to the point where my wife was like, okay, we're really going to have to start monthly budgeting for these trainings, because you're doing you're doing all these trainings, and we do need to eat, and I was sorry, but I kept going, because it's amazing, the information that's out there, and then the people that you meet in this fantastic organization when you're working your way through. Jake, you taught one of the courses that I was a part of, and
Wow.
the one where we were the colors, and I believe I was Mr. Red, and you're, well, Carl, tell us how Mr. Red would react to this, and so I was kind of, well, this is the way it is, deal with it or leave, and that kind of stuff, but I mean, it's amazing. So I wind up, I get my CAA, and at that point, Coach Mater said, well, hey, that's really all you need. But if you want to keep doing the trainings, there's this CMAA that you can, if you do that, you're really kind of up there with the elite, of athletic directors and all. And so I was like, well, heck yeah, I want to do, and you're exactly right. It is not easy to get the CMAA. I can't remember how many drafts of my project I had to go through, but the amazingly wonderful thing about it all is there are people you have coaches that are reaching out saying, hey, we fix this section. You need more here. You need this. It's not a, well, do it, like a dissertation. We'll do it, and then you get it back and it's no, redo it. I mean, there's coaching of the coaches going on that, I will always be eternally grateful for. Scott Garvis was a huge help. Scott, he put on there, he was soliciting opinions for his book, The DNA of an AD. Right. And, I just kind of, threw out a couple of opinions. Absolutely. There it is. Yeah. Threw out, my opinions on a couple of the matters. And, and lo and behold, they're in the book, and I'm like, what? Oh, wow. And the conferences, man, the conferences are unbelievable. I did the virtual conference in, I believe it was 2020. Right. I mean, it was one of those, I was glued to the computer screen. And then, and I'm really looking forward to getting back here in 2022 to the conference.
Now, again, I got a comment, Sandra Mater, I took LTI courses from her. Okay. And she was, and I told her this a couple of years ago, because I was a state coordinator for Florida and we're both in Indianapolis. And I went up and told her, I said, you probably don't realize this, but it was a course that I took from her that really kind of solidified all the crazy ideas I had about doing my CMAA project. And, Scott Garvis, there's an A-lister for you. We're both in that book. So how about that? There's another connection.
There you go.
Okay. All right. For our listeners, our guest today is Carl Semler. He's a certified master athletic administrator. He's in Lubbock, Texas. We're going to take another break, but he's going to share some more with us. Please stick around. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to the good folks at Snap Raise. Go to onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com and check out their entire platform. They've got a lot of different divisions, and they are all designed to help an athletic director's life go easier. One of the platforms is Snap Raise, and our coaches use Snap Raise as a fundraiser and raise thousands of dollars. There's even a component to Snap Raise that allows you to receive your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. They also have Snap Spend, which is their secure money management and transfer program. Snap Store allows you to order custom gear for your fans, for your students. They also have Snap Manage, which will put together an entire website for your school's athletic department. And Snap Manage, Snap Connect is their multilingual family engagement program that allows you to support every family in your community. You'll find it all at onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com. We also want to say thanks to the good people at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles and their library of templates if you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all your sports or your school's Hall of Fame. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present, and showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. Once again, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Carl, you've been doing this for a while. You've been at a couple of different schools. One of the things we try to do with the podcast, as you know, is share best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that, you've seen in your time, maybe even their initiatives that you started and that you're really proud of? But what are some best practices you can share with our listeners?
Well, the biggest one for me is community outreach. We live in a time nowadays where our communities, increasingly, you have schools of choice where parents can pretty much send their kids wherever they want. And so, what are you doing in order to show your community that you care about not just their children, but them? And what we do here at Lubbock is we have a gigantic school parking lot, and we had, for Halloween, we had a trunk or treat for basically for the city of Lubbock. And we had thousands of people show up from all over the city. We had, bounce houses. We had, of course, the trunk or treating aspect. We had pickleball for the parents, while their kids went around from group to group to group. So the biggest best practice that I have right now is just you have to have your program involved in your community. You've got to find ways to get in. We're going to have a Christmas, but here when we get back from Thanksgiving, we're going to have a Christmas craft fair where, now we're involving not just the athletic teams, but everybody in the school, where, our drama department, they're going to have booths, and our art classes, they're going to have things to sell. And, and then for New Year's, hopefully we're going to have some fireworks, again, in the parking lot. So, get involved in your community. Schools, though, that is one of the best ways to help build strong communities. And so that's my top best practice. The next one is kind of bringing it back into the building itself, sharing of athletes. I've been at some really big schools that, if you played football, that was all you did. If you played basketball, that was all you did. And then I've been at schools like my first head coaching job. I mean, that was, everybody had to do everything. I mean, I was meeting with all of the head coaches saying, okay, football season's over. Now everybody's going to try out for basketball. And the head basketball coach is like, well, I don't need everybody to try out. Yes, you do, because you need to have a freshman team. You need to have a JV team. You need to have a varsity team. Well, what if they're not very good? I'm not worried about if they're very good or not. What I'm worried about is, what are these young people going to have in their lives, other than that classroom, or home? What are they going to have to look at in school and say, well, okay, the school day's over. I don't have anything else. I'm just going to go home. and hopefully I'm going to go home. It's, I'm not going to like go make bad choices. So sharing of athletes, keeping the kids involved in something, because the other added benefit is grades. They have to be eligible, they have, in order to compete. So now we're helping those parents out with, okay, they're done with football, but now they're going into soccer. Well, you still got to have the same grades in order to play soccer. So, mom and dad, you don't have to worry about whether your son or daughter is taking care of business in the classroom, because the coaches are helping you there. And then the last thing, and we started this at my last school, was having a teacher of the week. We noticed that, there were a lot of, the faculty wasn't showing up to our games. That was, and I was talking to the staff and said, hey, we need to figure out a way to get the actual faculty involved more. And, the head baseball coach said, well, why don't we try a teacher of the week? And we can, we basically, they get in free to the game. We'll give them a certificate for Subway, something like that, and so we started that. And by the time I left, man, I mean, teachers were, hey, coach, when are you doing teacher of the week? When are you doing this? When are you do, hey, I haven't seen you again. Oh, I'm going to be there. I'm going to come down and shake your hand. I'm going to make sure, and so, all of a sudden the crowds are huge, because it's not just the teachers, it's their families that they're bringing, and yeah, it kind of starts out as somewhat of a bribe, but it turned into a lot more. It turned into, hey, I really didn't know that we were that good, at this stuff. I really, we don't live in the district, but how can my kids go to Aldine High School? What do I have to do? And so now our participation numbers are growing, because, that now the faculty wants to be involved. And so those are the biggest three best practices that, that I've come across. Be involved in your community, make sure your kids and your coaches are on the same page, and everybody's, the kids are playing as much as they can, and then involve your faculty with a teacher of the week program.
Yeah, all those are just fantastic. We've actually had some good success with a couple of those over the years. The teacher of the week, it was one of those aha moments, and we would have multiple ones. We would have kids invite a number of teachers to come to the game. They got to wear their extra jersey. And, if we had a pep rally, we give them a shout out. And again, getting involved with the community and the parents. Early on in my career, I was just the opposite. I was, thanks parents, we got this covered, just sit in the stands and cheer.
Right.
And it took me way too long to figure out, which I think I finally did, the value of embracing parents. And it's a new NIAAA course, partnering with parents. So,
right.
So thanks again for sharing that. For listeners, our guest is Carl Semler. He's a certified master athletic administrator. He's the associate head football coach and the associate athletic coordinator at Lubbock High School in Lubbock, Texas. We're going to take another break, but we will be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Gipper for their support. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. As I like to say, it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the podcast, and use the podcast code ADPOD10. That's ADPOD10, and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom branded content for your school's social media channel. And we want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to Huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their athletes play at the highest level. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Go to Huddle.com and you're going to find tools that will help every team, every coach, every athlete improve. Huddle's going to provide a professional grade solution for the challenges you face as an athletic director. We believe in sports. and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users at huddle.com and turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Carl Semler, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. Carl, I think we talk a lot about, leadership and teaching and how, athletic directors, we're coaching coaches, but, learning goes in multiple directions. So I'm going to kind of turn the tables on you. What are some things that you have learned from, say, your student athletes or even your coaches? Any stick out for you?
Yes, sir. From the athletes, from the kids, the biggest thing that I've learned is that everybody can be good at something. It always wears me out to hear a coach say, well, we don't have a spot for that guy on the team, or, well, I don't know what race this young lady can run. She's not very good at anything. Well, what are we as coaches doing? That's always my response. Well, they're good at something, you just haven't found it yet. So keep looking, keep looking. You're going to find what they're good at. We have young men that, honestly, and I joke with them about it, is when it comes to football, they couldn't play dead in a Western, but they are the best filmers that I have ever had to deal with, and I mean, they can work those drones. I mean, I keep telling them, you guys are ready for Monday Night Football. I mean, those guys, if they allow no wire drones to fly around those stadiums, you're the crew, I mean, you make those ESPN guys look silly, and so, I mean, they're great at it. And so, well, okay, they can do this. Now what are we going to do? Well, we find scholarships for them. Northwestern University in Louisiana, they're great at recruiting student managers and filmers. The University of Arizona, one of them went to University of Arizona. Why? Because they needed a kid that they could trust to handle all their game day uniforms. And I mailed their coach one of our uniforms and said, take a look at this and tell me how old you think it is. And he called back and said, I don't know, is like a 2-year-old uniform? I said, that's a 20-year-old uniform, and it didn't look that good. But we have this young man that can he is a miracle worker with laundry. And hey, are his grades good? Yes, sir. Well, it offered him a full ride,
Wow.
Just to handle the uniforms, So everybody can be good at something. It's our job as coaches to find out what that something is and then show them what it is and make sure that they grow in that. Let's see. And then from coaches, the biggest thing I've learned from coaches is never stop growing. Never stop growing. I mean, if it hadn't been for Sandra Mater, I would not be in NIAAA. If it hadn't been for Eli Melton, I wouldn't be in, I probably wouldn't be in THSCA. But assistant coaches, one of the reasons why I'm working on my doctorate right now is I have an assistant coach here that, he's working on his and he was struggling with it and he wanted to quit. And I said, well, look, don't quit. I said, what's it going to take for you to stay in this program? He said, well, I need somebody to hold me accountable and help me out with this. I said, okay, fine. What semester are you in? He said, well, I'm in the second semester. Okay, well, I'm going to be a semester behind you. And I signed up and I went to Arkansas State, or got online with them and said, hey, this is why I want to do this. And they said, okay, well, that's a very noble idea considering what you're about to put yourself through. And I said, well, hey, when it's, this young man is trying to grow, and who am I to stop myself from growing? Because I also believe if you stop growing, you turn brown and start rotting, and one of the things that will definitely be said about me is, that guy, he was learning right up until the day he probably, we found him with a pencil stuck in his back, slumped over his desk, because he ticked off the wrong student or, that's, um, I can't say enough about you have to just keep growing.
No, again, that's one of the mantras I think that we all try to live by is, that it become that lifelong learner.
Mhm.
And that learning from our kids, learning from our coaches, that's if you're not, as you said, if you're not, growing, you're receding, you're getting, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Yeah.
Right.
We're going to take another quick break, but for our listeners, if you just tuned in, our guest today is Carl Semler. He's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the associate head football coach and the associate athletic coordinator at Lubbock High School. So this is the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back. We want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in registration and forms, but Final Forms is so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with reminders about policies, reminders about physicals, and all the forms that go when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with things like attendance and communication with parents. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all of the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Carl, you and I were talking during the break a little bit, and you've got a very cool topic that you wanted to share. So go ahead and share that with our listeners.
All right. Thank you. Well, Texas, in Texas, we have most of our schools have athletic periods. And I realize it's not that way in every state. A lot of states, athletics is held either way before school or way after school. And we really have a great, we have a great situation here in that our sports are allowed to have specific academic periods. And so we can actually show video during the athletic period. We can do individual drills. We can get our weights out of the way. We can do all that kind of stuff before we actually go out to the field and practice football or basketball or, or tennis or, any of the other sports. And so now a lot of times athletic periods, when you talk about budgets, that at the state level, that's usually one of the first things that comes up is, well, can coaches, would it be better for the bottom line if we did not have an athletic period and the coaches were teaching extra classes, had another academic class? That's something that if your school or your district is considering a move like that, you really need to get out there and fight for those athletic periods. You really do, because, when you think about it, think about how long you are at school. Okay. Not just your kids and your assistant coaches and all, but how early do you have to be there if you don't have an athletic period? Okay. How early do you have to be at school? How late are you there? Could that time be improved upon by being able to take anywhere from 45 minutes to, if you're on a block schedule where you have a 90-minute period, can you have, how much more efficient can you be with your practices if you have the advantage of an athletic period? The other thing about athletic periods and coaches is, when you're in your athletic period, this is not a conference period for coaches. It's not something where a coach can say, okay, y'all are in the weight room. I'm going to be in here working on, I'm going to be in here in the office grading papers. That's how you lose an athletic period, because, a superintendent does not want to see a coach not working with children during an athletic period. What they want to see is this period being put to use in the right way? Are the coaches, is it an opportunity for the coaches to sit there and watch Sports Center while the guys are out playing touch football? Or is it an opportunity for the coaches to actually, work on their physical, their social emotional learning? This is where character curriculums are huge. If you have our athletic period, we have a daily character curriculum where we're talking to our young men and women about what is it, what is life like to be a good person, not just a good athlete, but a good person. What does being a good person actually look like? We're blessed that we can have those, we have that time where we can reenact situations where, I'll get up and I'll be like, I'll get up and fake a heart attack, okay, well, what are you going to do? Do you know CPR? Well, no, sir, I don't. Okay. So now what are you going to do? How do you help this person that you don't know that is obviously struggling? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you're at the store and the lady behind you with 3 kids, it reaches into her purse and says, well, we need to put this back. We need to put this back. I didn't realize I'd forgot this. I don't have, can you help that lady? Can you help those kids? What are you going to do? And the more time that we're able to spend with our athletes, showing them not just how to improve their physical well-being, but their social, emotional, their mental, their spiritual well-being, you can't replace that. I mean, that's huge.
No, you're absolutely right. You touched on so many key points there. Obviously the academics, but again, the connection between, we were talking about football, but it could be any sport. It could be soccer, volleyball, right, et cetera. The connection that the coaches on your staff, those adults, the men, the women, can build those relationships with the kids. You're not doing it to try to win games, but by the way, those connections help you win games. So it's a nice byproduct of doing it for all the right reasons. We should have done this earlier, so shame on me for not. Carl, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, and listeners, I think you got a great resource here. What's the best way that one of our listeners can get a hold of you?
I'll tell you what, I can give you my cell number. It is 682-557-6114. Or if you want to email me, it's Carl, CARL .Semler, SEMLER at LubbockISD.org.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much for doing that. We've got a couple people that give out their cell phone numbers. So again, if you're phone aversion, shoot Carl an email. But again, I think you got a great resource here. Carl, this has been really cool. I wish we had some more time, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. So we're going to take our final break. We're going to hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor the toolbox segment. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Carl Semler, veteran AD and coach, we're going to find out what Carl's going to put in his athletic director toolbox. So stay with us. We'll be right back. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes, and lets them help share what a positive experience can have for them. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for coaches, for teachers, for kids, and for parents. And the information that came back was almost always positive, and it will be for you too. But the surveys also allowed that squeaky wheel parent to vent a little bit. And sometimes they'd share a small issue that you could address and keep it from turning into a big issue because you didn't know about it, because you hadn't done a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting with Carl Semler, a certified master athletic administrator from Lubbock, Texas. Carl, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Carl Semler's athletic director toolbox?
All right. Well, okay. These are conceptual tools. The first one, it would be it's symbolize it with a paintbrush. And the lesson is don't paint yourself into a corner. Don't have policies that you can't use for everybody. The best example I've got of this is actually just a very quick coaching story. When my first head coaching job, the head track coach of the original school and we were both coaching track together. And he's got a kid that as a junior was a 3-event state champion in track. So we're getting ready to go to a track meet, and he had a hard, fast rule. If you are not, if he is on the bus, nobody else is getting on the bus. You just missed the meet. Well, I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting because the day of the meet, we get on the bus and this kid isn't there. And I see his car just screeching into the parking lot, and all this. And the coach, I look at the coach and said, okay, now what are you going to do? He looks at the team. He says, you know what? I forgot my book. I got to go grab it. And so he goes back in the field house. Kid goes running in the field house. The kid looks like he just woke up. I'm like, there is no way this guy's going to get out here on the bus before the coach does. Well, 5 minutes goes by. And so I get off the bus and I go in there, and he's sitting back at his desk. He's got his feet up. He's got his book. And he's like, I'll never paint myself into a corner with rules, hey, I like it. They're good, So that was kind of, you got to have an out and an ethical out if you're going to have all these big rules. So paintbrush first. Don't paint yourself into a corner. The second one is actually, I would say it's like a jar of sand. Okay. And it is, you got to have a plan for the desert. Okay. Because in in life, we all at some point are going to go through the desert. You got to know where your oases are, and you got to know where this quicksand is. You got to know where your help is, and you got to know where your problems are. And it's quicksand because sometimes it's the last person in the world you think that's going to step up and bite you. But here it is, So you always, when you're in the rough years of your career, because every single career goes through a rough period. When you're in that period, you got to know who you can count on, and you got to know who to kind of keep at arm's length, So that's the second tip, jar of sand. And then the third one, if I had a top hat, the old stovepipe hat, you've got to remember what President Lincoln said. I will conquer my enemies by making them my friends. Life is too short to go through it making enemies. People may not agree with you. You may have a 3-time state championship winning, basketball coach that you bring in because to help with your boys program because they're not doing real well. And the next thing you know, the parents are, they're at his throat. He doesn't know how to act because he's never been in a situation like that before. So now he's like, well, you got to go to Semler. Leave me out of it and all. And so, here's the beginning of a desert situation. Well, you conquer your enemies by making them your friends. Those parents that are at your throat, you need to spend time with them. And don't just spend time arguing with them. Spend time with them saying, well, look, the most important thing for both of us is your child. So how can we work together to benefit your child? Because when you phrase it to somebody like that, and like with coaches, if you got two coaches fighting over the same athlete, look, what is going to be best for this young lady? So as the adults, what do we have to do? How do we work together so this young lady gets to do what she really wants to do? And as a byproduct, we get what we need her to do. You know, how do you do that? You conquer your enemies by making them your friends. You know, staff dinners are huge. Invite the families. Don't just make it, you know, boys' night out. That wears me out. Or girls' night out. That wears me out too. You can't, you know, don't, everybody's got a family, you know, and so invite the families. We're going into the holiday season. This is a golden opportunity for a first-time athletic director to throw a Christmas party. You know, if your school will allow it, you know, because that's another big thing. If your school will allow it, have it on your school campus. Let your coaches' families see where you're working, where they work, what their classroom looks like, what those locker rooms look like. You know, it's one thing for you to sit there and talk to them about it, and they'll be nice. So, oh, yeah, right. Okay. And your kids, yeah, Dad, all right. Yeah. You know, but then they get to go into the locker room and they're, oh, look, can I wear one of the helmets? Can I do this? Can I, you know, now your staff is a family. And it's really, really, really hard for a family to be backbiting. You know, it's very hard for somebody that is your friend to say, I'm not gonna treat you right. You know, those would be my three tools: a paintbrush, a jar of sand, and a stovepipe hat.
You probably noticed me furiously scribbling down those notes. I think this could be a very first. We've done over 350 full-length interviews. I think you might be the first AD to have 3 unique tools mentioned. So with all the tools, these are going to be part of that 3rd edition of the Athletic Director's Toolbox. So you know, I might have to see if I can squeeze one into an existing category, but still having 2 originals, let alone 3, that's pretty good. Carl, one more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain, how can they get a hold of you?
Okay, you can call me or text me on my cell. That is 682-557-6114. Or you can email me at Carl, C-A-R-L, .Semler, SEMLER, at LubbockISD.org.
Carl Semler, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and all the best moving forward with all your teams there at Lubbock High.
Thank you. Go Westerners.
There you go. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of every interview get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening. Want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors and to our partners, We Coach and the global community of women in high school sports. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.